Hello, and thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news tonight. Donald Trump says there is no deal until there's a deal. A summit between the U.S. president and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska just ended. The leaders were discussing the war in Ukraine and calls for a ceasefire. Trump said they reached an understanding on ending the war, but there is no word on a ceasefire.
But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team.
Trump says he will now speak with European leaders and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to give them an update. Ukrainians around the world, of course, closely watching this high-stakes summit, including those here in Calgary. Terry Fikowski joins us now. So, Terry, what is the Ukrainian-Canadian community making out of what came out of the meeting?
Well, Tara, of course they want the war to end, but don't believe that Putin really wants peace. That's according to the vice president of Calgary's branch of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, who says as these two leaders met today, missiles rained down on Ukraine. Stefania Roniak was among many Ukrainian Canadians glued to their phones for updates from the summit today. Trump and Putin didn't give any indication what was or wasn't agreed to behind closed doors, only saying it was an extremely productive meeting. Roniak says she's watching closely and looking for strong security guarantees and the return of political prisoners, prisoners of war, and abducted children. Now, Putin referred to Ukraine and Russia as brotherly nations. Roniak says that's propaganda and makes it sound like Ukraine is not its own distinct nation. She says the local Ukrainian community is skeptical this meeting will have a positive outcome for Ukraine, given the warm reception between Trump and Putin.
For me, it's a gut punch and it's sickening. Putin is a war criminal. He's wanted by the International Criminal Court for multiple counts of war crimes. He's greeted with handshakes and smiles. This is a slap in the face of not only Ukrainians, but anybody who believes in simple human dignity. Russia can say all that it wants to, but it's frankly impossible to conduct successful diplomacy when one party simply lies, which is what Russia historically has done.
Again, as for what's next, Trump says he'll be making calls to the head of NATO and to President Zelensky, who was not invited to this meeting. What may not sit well with Zelensky or Ukrainians, though, is while the press conference was wrapping up, Putin suggestively joked in English that the next meeting would be in Russia, which Trump kind of laughed off and said he'd take some heat for it. But, Terry, he didn't outright rule it out.
Okay, Terry Fikowski reporting. Terry, thank you.